This was in 2014, in rural Pennsylvania. My family moved into this old farmhouse, built in the 1800s. Creaky floors, drafty windows, the works. The realtor told us it had character, which apparently is code for some weird stuff has happened here. The first night, my little brother Ben, 8 at the time, came into my room crying because the tall man was in his closet. Naturally, I told him to go to bed and stop being creepy. He slept on my floor that night anyway. The next night, Ben screamed bloody murder around 2 a.m. We all ran in, and his closet door was wide open. He said the tall man walked out, looked at him, and melted into the wall. My parents chalked it up to nightmares, but I started keeping a knife under my bed, just in case. One morning, I woke up with dirt on my feet and a bite mark on my shoulder, like a human bite. It was at this point that my parents started taking us seriously. They didn't say it outright, but I could see it in the way my dad looked at me, like he was remembering something he had tried to forget. My mom clutched my arm and examined the bite in the early light pouring through the kitchen window, muttering under her breath about getting it cleaned and bandaged. But even as she dabbed at the wound with hydrogen peroxide, her hands trembled. That night, my father pulled the old hunting rifle down from the attic. He hadn't touched it in years. He cleaned it quietly at the kitchen table while the rest of us pretended to watch TV. The usual creaks of our old farmhouse seemed louder than normal. Every wind gust and every branch tapping the walls made us flinch. Then things got worse. The next morning, my younger brother Ben was missing from his bed. His window was wide open, screen bent upward like something had clawed it loose. Muddy footprints led from his room, down the hallway, and straight out the back door. Prints too large to be his, too wide, almost barefoot, but not quite. We followed them only a few feet, into the trees before they disappeared entirely. Like the thing had started flying, or climbing. The police were called, of course. Search teams combed the woods for 2 days. Helicopters circled. Dogs sniffed and barked and whined. Eventually they found Ben, crouched over the creek near our house in an animal-like state. That night, my dad nailed the windows shut. I started hearing the voice a few days after that. It only came at night, always from the woods. At first, it sounded like Ben calling my name, whispering it like he was trying not to wake anyone. But the longer I listened, the more I realized it wasn't him. It used his voice, but wrong. Like it was learning, practicing. Then it started saying other things no one should have known. Secrets I'd never told anyone. Things I'd only thought, and still, it kept using Ben's voice, softer, now, closer. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I snuck out through the basement, past the boarded windows and creaky steps, and into the trees. The moonlight barely reached the forest floor, but I didn't need light. I could hear it calling and breathing. I followed the sound to the edge of the old creek behind our property, the same one where they found Ben, and there, crouched by the water, was something. It turned around. It had Ben's face, but it wasn't him. The eyes were too dark, too deep. The skin hung wrong, like clothes worn inside out. It smiled, slow and wide, and I heard its voice in my head this time. You came back. You always do. I ran. I don't remember getting home. I just remember the sun rising and my parents finding me curled on the porch, shaking and barefoot. No one spoke a word. We moved a week later, never talked about it again. But sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I still hear it, calling my name. and waiting. This happened when I was around 10. We had just moved into this old house in Oregon. Super quiet neighborhood, big backyard, kind of a fixer-upper. My room had this built-in cabinet, high up on the wall, almost near the ceiling. No idea what it was for, too small to store anything useful, too awkward to reach without a stool. Kinda like those little cabinets above your microwave that just never get used for anything. About a week after we moved in, I started hearing what sounded like knocking coming from inside the cabinet. It sounded almost like something was being thrown around inside somehow. I thought it had to be the wood settling, until one night, I couldn't sleep and just laid there staring at it. And right on cue, it was different this time, much more aggressive, and seemingly as if whatever it was bouncing off the walls in there. I froze. My heart was going nuts. I didn't move a muscle until the sun came up the following morning. That morning, I finally got brave and dragged a chair over and opened it. Just a dark space with marbles inside. I distinctly remember counting them, and there was 13 in total. But the thing that scared me the most, carved into the back wall in shaky letters, were the words, "Let me out." I refused to sleep in that room again. This happened to me about 15 years ago, and I still don't have a good explanation for it. I was 17, staying at my grandparents' house in a small, rural town while my parents were going through a messy divorce. Their house was old, like built in the 1800s old, with creaky floorboards, weird drafts, and a basement that looks like it came out of a horror movie. But the weird part wasn't the house itself. It was what started happening in my room. The first night, I woke up around 3:30 a.m. because I heard whispering. I thought it was the TV at first, but when I opened my eyes, I realized the sound was coming from the closet. It was super quiet, like someone whispering under their breath, and I couldn't make out the words. I got up to check, heart pounding, opened the closet, nothing. Figured maybe it was the wind or pipes or something. Second night, same thing. Whispering, closet. Except this time, when I opened the closet door, all of my clothes were on the floor, even though I had hung them up the day before. Still, no one there. The third night is what messed me up. I woke up again to the whispering, but this time there was also a weird scraping sound, like nails on wood. I sat up in bed and saw that the closet door was slightly open, even though I always closed it before bed, after the last 2 nights. I grabbed my phone and shined the flashlight towards it, and I swear on my life, there was a hand pulling the door open slowly from the inside. It was pale, with long, bony fingers, and its nails were too long, like a good 2 inches past the tips of the fingers. The worst part was, as the door creaked open, I saw eyes. Just these 2 white, cloudy eyes staring right at me from the dark. I bolted, ran to my grandparents' room and refused to go back in there. The next morning, my grandpa went to check the room. Nothing there. Closet was shut. No scratches, no clothes on the floor. I made him switch rooms with me for the rest of my stay. I sometimes blame myself for what came next. Horrifyingly, he died 3 months later in his sleep. In that same room. I still won't go back in that house.